Factorising quadratic algebraic expressions when we have a number in front of the x squared. And of course it's also attached to that x squared because it means 3 times that. I'm going to put our brackets down as before, as is our habit of doing that. It's always good to do that because then you've got your framework nicely set out. Then we're going to use that same method of looking for two numbers multiplied together to make -7. And we can only have 1 and 7. And we know that one of them is going to be a minus because two numbers multiplied together to give us a -7, then one of them has to be a minus. But we also want, in some way, these two numbers to end up, when we add them together, to make 20. Well, they don't make 20 as they are, but we look at this number here, and the little magic method is to say, okay, I'm going to then times one of these numbers by 3, and then I'm going to add those two numbers together. So let's say we multiply the 1 by the 3. So this gives us 3 and 7. Well, they still are not going to make 20x, whether we add them or take them. So that's not going to work. What if we treble the 7? In that case, we're going to have 21 and 1. And that will give us 20x, because if we take 1 from 21, we're going to get 20. So let's put our 3x in there and our x in there. And now let's figure out which and where they're going to go. Well, I've said that it's the 7 we want to actually times by 3. So the 7 has to go there because it has to be multiplied by this 3 here. And therefore the 1 is going to go there. So we're actually still using these numbers, and this little bit here is just a little bit of method to show us that they're going to add together when we treble one of them. So now we've got to figure out which is minus and which is plus. And we look at these and we say, well, 3 times 7 is 21. And we know we need the plus, the 20's got to be plus. So that's going to be a plus because when we take 1 away from 21, then we get 20. So it's the 1 that has to be the minus. Let's just check why this works. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 7 is plus 21x. Minus 1 times x is minus x. And minus 1 times 7 is minus 7. We can collect our like terms here, and that gives us 3x squared plus 20x minus 7. And that gets us to where we want to be. Just go through that again. And then go through the previous example where we've got a 2x squared there. And the tricky bit here is making that connection between why are we multiplying one of these numbers by this. And we're doing that because when we put the 7, for example, in here, we're going to get 3 times 7. That's why we've trebled it. Because when we get 3 times 7 and 1 times x, we take the 1x away to get our 20. And we can just work that little bit out there. Now that's a difficult connection, but you can start to become familiar with that. But if you just learn that little method, that when you've got a number here and you want to figure out which two numbers, which pair of numbers it is, still the same method, two numbers multiplied together to make the single number on its own. And then to make this number here that's attached to the x, you have to take that pair of numbers, whichever one it is, and times one of those numbers by this and add it to the other one. Now that's a little bit of trial and error to do there to see which numbers fit best, and it's quite hard, so it's better to write it down than try and do it all in your head because that can be quite confusing, and in the stress of an exam then it's always better to write things down because for your own clarity's sake. Okay, go through that again and go through it slowly. Don't try and fit everything in at one time. You know, maths and understanding maths is, as I said in the previous video, a process. And sometimes it's a slow process. But actually when it's a slow process, that means you're really digging in and taking the time. Some people are very good at learning methods very quickly, but then it all goes very quickly as well. When you start to digest things very slowly and you start to make those little connections, then very often it stays around in your mind for much longer, and that's the kind of revision and the kind of learning that you really want. So slow is fine, and actually sometimes better than quick. Okay, I will see you back soon with another video on another aspect of algebra. The next section will really be about solving quadratic equations, and then you will see how all this starts to make sense into a slightly bigger picture.